There have been several large-scale instances of fraud, waste, and abuse here in Minnesota in recent years, such as the Feeding Our Future case and more recently the federal investigation into suspected Medicaid fraud tied to autism centers. Republican Senator John Jasinski has been advocating for stronger protections against fraud, and he joins us now. Senator, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Veronica. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So when we talk about fraud, waste, and abuse at the state level, what are we talking about?
Well, there's been many instances since I came in 2017. We've been talking about this. CCAP, the child care, Feeding Our Futures, the Medicaid fraud. There's just all kinds of different cases that have been happening over the last several years.
And how big of a problem would you say that is here in Minnesota?
I think it's a big problem. We've been talking about it for many years. Nothing's really been getting done about it that we see. People of the state of Minnesota are upset. That's one of the big things I hear when I'm out in my district, in the post office, the grocery store. People are, that's our taxpayer money. And that needs to be handled and administered professionally so that the people that actually need it can get it. And if it's being done through waste, fraud, and abuse, it's being taken advantage of, and we just can't have that in Minnesota.
Now, Senator, do we have any numbers or data highlighting the amount of fraud, waste, and abuse happening here?
The Center for American Spirit had a great website on there, and to their total going back from 2019 to 2024, it's about $553 million or $552 million and change about. That's a big number, Veronica.
Now, people in your district were particularly mentioned in a fraud case regarding Minnesota's Medicaid program. What have you heard from them on the issue?
Again, going back to the residents that you hear, they're upset hearing what's going on with the cases and taking advantage of a certain distance away from Faribault to send people to Medicaid. I think the Pit Stop 66 is the case they're talking about. Again, it's taking people from Faribault and using names fictitiously to get mileage reimbursements to the Twin Cities. So not are they being handled in Faribault area, but they're being shipped up and fictitiously with names of many of them farther away so they can get more reimbursement mileage. And that's, again, just wrong. It's taking money away from people that need it and is frauding the system.
Now, we know this is a budget year, and we've heard both sides on the issue of the budget regarding fraud, waste, and abuse, that countering that can help balance our budget, and others saying it's just such a small drop in the bucket that it won't make a difference. Where do you fall on that issue?
Well, I think every dollar makes a difference, to be honest, and that's a dollar that you're taking away from another taxpayer that needs it. So I say it's a big thing. We went back to 2 years ago. We had an $18 billion surplus. We've heard many times on that. They've increased spending on the other side in a trifecta government, which is not good for our state. We need some checks and balances, and when they increase spending by that much, 40% in 1 year, something's wrong. And a lot of this money is being mismanaged. The Walz administration, this stops with them. This is the Walz administration. It's been 2019 to 24. We've been talking about it since I came in the legislature, and I hope at some point people take this seriously and we can reduce this, eliminate this. It's difficult to eliminate completely. I get that. You're always going to find things. But the amount that's happened here in Minnesota, I think it's the #1 state in the nation for fraud and abuse. So we have to get that underneath control.
Wow. So the DFL senator has proposed the creation of a new Office of Inspector General to kind of combat these issues. Is this an idea you support?
Well, if it's outside the administration, it's a separate arm and it's bipartisan, yes, but I don't think it is. I think what's happening in the House, they've set up a new committee that's looking at that. I can't remember the specific name of it. I might have it here somewhere, but they're looking at Fraud Oversight Committee, and this is being chaired by Representative Christian Robbins, and this is something that I think will really bring things together. I think with just a recent resignation of Commissioner Jody Harpstead from DHS is the timing of this may be coincidental. It may not be. I think there's some fear of what's going to come out with this committee, and I think this is a great step forward with what the House is doing to put a committee at looking at this, giving them subpoena power, and really digging into what the waste and the fraud and the abuse has been and to prevent it from the future.
Now, you said that you have hope that this issue will be taken seriously, and it's something that you've talked about for years in your caucus as well. Given that, there's this DFL push for a new office and the governor's work on this issue so far this session. Do you feel like it might receive that bipartisan support you've been looking for?
Well, again, we've been up against a trifecta for the last 2 years, so that's been very frustrating. And I actually posed that as a question to in a leadership meeting with the Democrat controls head. Have you ever been up against a Republican trifecta? And nobody in that room had ever had dealt with that. So again, we're concerned with this. I think this is the first step. By the House being tied, at least it gives some checks and balances. But I really think divided government is best, and that actually puts some checks and balances. And I think the timing of it, it questions me a little with the governor coming out. I think they're realizing that an election is coming up in 2026, and now they're trying to put some emphasis towards this because they're concerned to what's happening. Even on a national level, the people are frustrated. You saw what happened with the presidential election. We saw things turn quite decisively. And I think the Democrats here in Minnesota are concerned about that. And I think that's why they're coming out with this. So I hope it's genuine. I hope we can reach some issues and find out what's going on here. But we really need to get this under control. And again, we've been talking about it for years. My 8 years up here, I've been talking about it from the very first year with the child cap or CCAP issue here with the child care. And hopefully we will see some progress this year.
With all the talk of progress on this issue for this session, do you think you guys can knock it out, or is it going to take sustained collaboration to counter, fraud, waste, and abuse in Minnesota?
Well, just watching the start of the legislature yesterday with the House and what's going on and us with the power sharing agreement, I'm concerned. I would like to see a little bit more divided government, obviously. In our first couple of years in 2017 and 2018, we had a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Democrat governor. And that's actually where we got some things done. That's before Governor Walz's time, but actually I saw things get done. There was compromise, there was checks and balances. And since that, then we lost the House 2 years later, and it made it a little bit more difficult. But I think a divided legislature with some checks and balances are what Minnesotans want. They want to see that there's some checks and balances and that this isn't out of control. And I believe in the last couple of years, Minnesota has been out of control with their waste, the fraud, and the abuse happening here.
Senator, is there anything else you'd like to say on this topic that I haven't been able to ask you about?
No, I think, Veronica, you've hit the points. Again, we want to bring this, we've been trying to bring this to the highlight of a lot of things over the years, but hopefully now the governor's serious about it. I think with the House, with that new committee, and if that gets set up the way it should be, that will help. But anything we can do to stop what's going on here in Minnesota, again, from across the state, people are looking at Minnesota saying, what's going on in Minnesota? It's gotten extreme, and we have to get that under control.
All right. Senator, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Veronica.